Hi, my name is Carol Casey. I'm an attorney supervisor at the Cook County Office of the Public Guardian. We're going to be talking about three topics. The first one is how to get comfortable with the Zoom platform itself. The next is how you actually prepare for your day in Zoom court. And our final topic is actually how to advocate for your clients when you're in court. So the way we got started is on a Saturday, I got a call from one of the attorneys I supervise. And she said, tomorrow, Judge Balinoff wants us all to be on Zoom because we're going live on Monday. So that was a bit of a challenge. I wasn't remotely ready to do it. Neither was our staff of more than 120 attorneys. So on Sunday, Judge Balinoff said, well, why don't we run a dry run on Monday and be ready to go on Tuesday? So I thought of every possible thing that could go wrong with Zoom court. And I practiced, and I set up clients who don't show up, phone calls that get dropped, putting evidence in, objecting, you name it, foreign speaking litigants, the whole shebang. But we got through it. So despite my best efforts, we went live, and we've been live since then. So I'd like to give you a few ideas about first getting comfortable with that platform. What I suggest you do is download the app to your computer. It's a lot easier working that way. You can work through your browser itself, but it's easier if there's an app, go ahead and use it. The Zoom platform is a platform that's usually used for meetings, but it's been extended into the courtroom. So the first thing that you should do is actually get used to using the platform itself. You can download the app onto your computer, onto your tablet, onto your phone. You can even call in. The app itself and using it in your setting as a participant in court is free. And that's important for us because many of our litigants have no income or have limited income. The next thing I would suggest you do is just take a look at what training material is out there. There is lots of it. But the fastest way to learn anything is to jump in and do it. So I would suggest that you learn how to do the following things on Zoom. And that's how to mute and unmute yourself, how to turn on and off your video, how to participate in a chat, have some idea of what being on hold looks like, having a breakout room, sharing a screen, and changing your name. It sounds like a lot, but actually there's just a couple buttons that you switch. And once you know where they are, it's easy as pie. So what I would suggest you do is, as you're getting used to Zoom, start thinking about what device you're going to be using for your Zoom. It's a lot easier to use it on a desktop or a laptop. You have more access to the features, they're easier to get to, and your hand is not getting in the way of your image. That happens on tablets. Try to get that going, and also try to use a wired device as opposed to wireless. You can definitely use wireless. I've done it wirelessly. I've done it from my phone. I've had people do it from their cars. But the reason you'd go with wired is, in my household, my husband is doing Zoom court and my 3 children are doing Zoom school. We want to make sure that we have as few breaks in your participation in the courtroom. So once you get going, you're going to notice a couple things. You're going to notice how you sound and hear, and also how you look. And for sound, for speaking, you're going to notice that there's a very small delay between when you speak and when you are heard. You have to get used to that feeling because it becomes very important when you're objecting to information in court. So the other thing to keep in mind is, in some ways, in some setups for the courtroom, the minute you start speaking, the camera focuses on you, which is great because that's where it's supposed to be focused, right? Except if you're shifting around a paper or unintentionally making a sound. then you're drawing the attention to you. That's why that mute button is important. You're going to learn that a smaller room is better. You sound better when you're in a smaller room. You're also going to learn that when the light is in front of you, people can see your face. And if it's behind you, they can't. That's a big deal for the court reporters because if they can't see their mouth, it's difficult for them to take it. The next thing you'll notice is that you might hear better with earbuds or earphones. But make sure you kind of take a look at how you look and how you sound about whether you need those. Most people get by without those. You should also be aware of what is behind you. Some people, they don't have many choices about what's behind them. There is a way of setting a virtual background. It's a little distracting. So in your best world, think about a surface that you can be in front of. Try to avoid it being plain white, but make sure it's kind of orderly and not distracting. The next thing we're going to talk about is how you actually prepare for going to court. Preparing for court is critical in any situation, but it's especially important when you're going to be in Zoom court. Communication is the key. It's critical that you communicate with opposing counsel or the other parties as soon as possible. It could be as simple as discussing what we're going to resolve in court today, or you might want to discuss whether or not you're going to have stipulations or stipulations as to fact. You can talk about what your agreed order what an order would look like. You could also talk about discovery and how you're going to plan on exchanging evidence that you plan on admitting at that hearing. It seems like it's really basic, but it's fundamental because you really don't have a chance to have those side conversations once you're in Zoom court. That having been said, it's critical that you do have a second means of communication when you are on Zoom court. What I do is I have a cell phone in front of me. And the reason I have that cell phone is so I can text people. I can text opposing counsel if it seems like they've forgotten something. I can text, in my case, an attorney that I'm supervising. Or I can text a witness and say, hey, are you around? It's also critical because every once in a while, you're going to have a technical problem. And one of the attorneys and one of the parties are going to drop out. It's a great opportunity for you to check in and say, look, we're all waiting for you, or we're going to pause for 10 minutes to get you back on. So have that second means of communication. The last thing you need to do is test your equipment. Not just have you test your equipment, but have everybody test their equipment. If you're going to be presenting a witness, make sure that they know what they're going to be using. If they're just using the phone, that's cool, but make sure that the phone is working. If you're going to be having a client participate via Zoom, make sure that their computer is working or that their tablet is working. And the best way to do that is to start communicating with your witnesses and your clients in preparation of going to court. So normally you might have somebody on the phone, and you might do it in person. I would suggest you use Zoom or use the format for the court in order to prepare your witnesses. It gets you ready, it gets them ready. The next topic I'm going to talk about is actually what's going on in the courtroom. Now, it might look a little bit more relaxed, but it's still court. And in my case, and what we're dealing with, it's important that it look as serious as possible because we are dealing with people's children and people's lives. So get dressed for court. Don't be that lawyer who gets caught practicing out of their bed. It was in the press. The court is going to send you an invitation, either through the court coordinator or the judge or some other way. When you get that invitation, if it's set for a set time, make sure you're on time or early. If it's for an immediate invitation, which is what we do a lot in Cook County, make sure you jump on the second you get it. Pay attention. For us, it comes by email. So once you are in, change your name. Not change your name, but change your name. I go on as Public Guardian Carol Casey. And that's so everybody knows what office I worked for when I'm in the call. So if you're the plaintiff, you might want to say plaintiff or plaintiff's counsel. Or sometimes when you have multiple parties like we do, you might want to say public defender for John Doe because there might be a Michael Rowe and you're going to say public defender for Michael Rowe. So make sure it's real clear who you are. So also make sure that your witnesses and clients have their names appropriately identified. It sounds like a little point, but it goes so much more smoothly when that happens. I suggest before you get started with the actual hearing, have a conference with the court and with the judges. So clarify what issues you're dealing with that day. Discuss whether or not you're going to need a breakout room. It'll give the judge a chance to get that set up as well. Explain that you might have a witness that might need to be in the holding room. And that's easy. It's kind of like you get put on hold. There's a white background, but you're not participating in the hearing, but you're available. Talk about the tech and the limitations about technology that you're dealing with. You might have somebody who's using a dial-in phone number, and so we're not going to have a video feed of them. You can also clarify how you're going to submit evidence to the court and deal with orders. So it might be a couple minutes. It could be a good long while that you're going to be doing that conference. Consider your record. This is like any other court hearing. So not only are you doing your hearing for the judge, you're doing it for the record as well. So when you have technical problems, if you can't hear for a couple questions, make sure you point that out. We've never had a problem with the judge going back and saying, okay, going from this question, please repeat. Make sure that when you are in the courtroom, that you're on mute as much as possible, except we all know that things happen quickly in the courtroom. I cannot turn the mute button on fast enough in order to place an objection when a witness is testifying. So I unmute myself and make sure everything's quiet around me. Because if I need to object, I need to get in there right away. It's also helpful if you're arguing or if opposing counsel is arguing. You're going to have to jump in there in order to make sure your point gets heard. Now, about objecting, go ahead and do it. This is court. We're supposed to be doing that. It's a little weird when you first do it because when you object, it doesn't get heard right away. And I've gotten into the habit, and it's almost becoming a verbal tick, to say objection, objection, because I've made the point, but I keep on arguing my objection. Speaking of which, don't do a speaking objection. This is not your setting to do the great argument that you wanted on an evidentiary issue. Be concise as possible whenever you are doing Zoom court. It makes it a lot more complicated and difficult if you are speaking in long chunks of information. Go ahead and cite the law. Be ready for that. We're lawyers, that's what we're supposed to do. But make sure you have that citation really clearly in front of you. So you're not, shifting papers around going, okay, what is the citation for this? Have it in front of you, big and large, and be ready to email that to the parties if necessary. So I get a lot of questions about how you actually admit evidence when you're in Zoom court. It's remarkably like how you do it in real life. You're going to mark your exhibit. You're going to show it to your witness. There are a couple ways to do that. You can just hold it up in front of the camera, or you can screen share it. Once you've laid the foundation, move to admit. The court will hear argument if it merits it, or they'll go ahead and admit it. There are a couple ways to get that evidence to the judge. And again, this is something you're going to talk about during your conference, but you can do it by emailing it directly to the court. You can email all the evidence to, say, the plaintiff or the state, and they will ensure that it gets to the court. In some jurisdictions, we aren't one of them, they use Dropbox. And so all the evidence goes into the Dropbox, and the court coordinator will get it to the judge once it's admitted. The last issue is how do you deal with somebody who needs translation or an interpreter? We've done a bunch of those hearings. There is a function in Zoom where you will have two channels of sound going on. One, say in this case, would be in Spanish, the other would be in English. Your court interpreter will be on the Spanish side, and you will hear everything from the Spanish side on the English side through the interpreter, but you will hear the person who is speaking at like around 20% sound. That moves pretty quickly. It's actually remarkably effective. The problem is, when it doesn't work, it is very hard to work with an interpreter. Everything goes much more slowly because it is not as clear when one person turns over to another. But that's a little bit of information about what actually occurs in a Zoom courtroom and how to manage it. It's just like any other court, so you're going to maintain that level of formality, and you're going to use all the advocacy skills you did before, but now you're doing it on Zoom. So I hope I've given you enough information for you to do that first hearing and to be comfortable about it, or at least to figure out or anticipate where some problems might arise. You know, I've got to be honest with you, I have really enjoyed being in Zoom court. It's a great opportunity to really clean up your lawyering. There's not a lot of room for rambling and going on and on. It really pushes you up to a next level of advocacy. And as trying and difficult as this time has been for everybody, for ourselves, for our families, and as practitioners, we are going to be moving forward in the practice of law, and this is one of the ways it's going to get done. I do recommend that you check in with the ISBA's website. There's a COVID-19 page. And so check out some tips and resources at our ISBA website. And thank you.